Hare Krishna. So I want to do a video talking about the Bhaktivedanta Institute and my understanding of why Prabhupada wanted it. All these ideas will be recycled from Sariputta Prabhu. If you don't know who he was, he's also known as Richard L. Thompson, and he is, in my opinion, the best science preacher ISKCON has ever had. And I think he's right up there with anyone Christians have who's done any kind of science preaching. And tragically, he left his body back in, I don't know if it was 2005 or 2008. So it was before I came to Krishna consciousness. I think he was doing fantastic work of making arguments for Gaudiya Vaishnava ideas, or at least, the basic premises of Gaudiya Vaishnava ideas through science preaching. And I want to address some objections people have to this kind of preaching. And I want to talk about, what was I going to say? The objections, why I think this kind of preaching is important. So the typical objection goes that you can't learn anything about God from mundane science. The only way to learn about God is to study the scripture and to take shelter of a guru and take instruction from sadhus. And this is all true. I've never heard anyone say otherwise. Even Christians, they don't say you can really learn about God through... there is this idea that is a little different. In one of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's poems, Saragrahi Vaishnava, he was a Christian for a while, so he has probably borrows from some Christian ideas, perhaps, but he does so when they're compatible with Gaudiya Vaishnavism. That there's the book of, the scripture, and there's the book of nature. So we can learn about God by studying the world, because the Krishna in our heart guides us to some understandings about God through the experiences we have in our lives and so on. So. And there's a quote from one scientist that says, a little bit of science leads you to atheism, a lot of science leads you to God. Because when you really study things in depth, then you find there's got to be an intelligence behind this. But to really get serious knowledge about God, then you have to, get instruction from a guru, study scripture. So I've never heard anyone, even Christians, say anything different. So it's a real misplaced objection. But they might say, well, because really the idea here with the Bhaktivedanta Institute and science preaching is that people can be persuaded to get on the path where they later take shelter of bhakti, or persuaded to give up atheistic ideas, persuaded that the basic premises of Krishna consciousness are not contradicted by science and are even supported by science. And once they come to understandings like that, the chances of them reading Bhagavad Gita and taking it seriously are far greater. So that's why it's important. I'm going to put a link in the description of this video to a lecture given by Sariputta Prabhu, where he explains why Prabhupada wanted the Bhaktivedanta Institute, the purpose behind it. He's drawing a lot of quotes from a morning walk where Prabhupada was talking about how we have to defeat these atheistic ideas. People have a false theory, and so many people are suffering. The scientists are misleading people with these atheistic ideas, and we have to defeat them. He's talking to his disciples, if you got a degree in chemistry, then be a real chemist and challenge these atheistic ideas about life coming from matter. I think Prabhupada even gives an analogy, at least Sariputta was quoting something like that, just like if you're a witness to a crime and you don't testify, you're also guilty. This is a Vedic idea of guilt, and it's shared by other cultures too. So similarly, if you're a scientist and you know some of these ideas that mainstream science is teaching, these atheistic ideas, if you know they're nonsense and you don't challenge it, because you might think, it'll hurt my career to challenge it, it's inconvenient to challenge it, it's a lot of work. But if they're teaching false ideas that are leading people away from God, and you know better and you're in a position to challenge it and you don't, then you're also guilty of spreading those atheistic ideas. So to me, this is all pretty obvious that science preaching is important, because misconceptions people have about science and atheistic conclusions that seem to come from science, either the interpretations of the science are false, or the data is misrepresented in order to appear to point to an atheistic conclusion, when really, if you look at the data more in depth or in a more accurate way, you find that the data is misrepresented and it doesn't point to atheism. That I think a lot of that goes on, and we need to challenge that. And there's some nice Christian organizations like the Discovery Institute. Stephen Meyer is doing some nice work. I'm going to take this call. Okay, I can't remember where I was, but I think that will do for this video. I'll probably have more to say on this topic, but I'll gauge that based on the sort of feedback I get. I'm interested to see if I get much pushback, because to me this is a pretty clear-cut idea that people who are persuaded by atheistic ideas are less likely to take interest in bhakti, and if we can convince them some of those atheistic ideas are based on false assumptions or false reasoning, they're more likely to take interest in theism. But I think that's pretty clear. I mean, the rise of belief in theories like evolution and other theories that purport to give a scientific basis for not needing God to explain reality, or God being absent from reality. The rise in people believing that has coincided with the rise of atheism. Yeah, of course, correlation does not equal causation, but it's pretty clear that there probably is a causal relationship between a rise in atheistic beliefs and a rise in atheism. But in any case, that will do for this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Hare Krishna.